The silence in the courtroom wasn't just quiet, it was heavy. It was the kind of silence that precedes a total collapse. Andy Cohen, the man who has spent decades orchestrating the most chaotic narratives in Hollywood, was finally powerless. As he sat there, a single blue folder lay closed on the desk in front of him. Andy Cohen wasn't just crying, he was breaking. Look closely at this frame. This isn't a performance for the cameras. This is the physical manifestation of a man who realized that a single 12-second digital leak just erased his entire legacy. At exactly 2:14 p.m., a file was unsealed that linked a $6 million plot directly to the names Annie and Tomaso. But the real shock? The target wasn't a rival executive. It was Nancy Guthrie. Most people think this was a legal misunderstanding. They are wrong. This was a calculated Phase 1-inch execution. Before this video ends, I am going to show you the evidence that the mainstream media is currently being paid to delete. I will reveal the Project Observer files that link Andy Cohen, Annie, and Tomaso to a conspiracy so dark it makes the Hollywood blacklist look like a rehearsal. You need to stay until the very end, because the final document we recovered, it proves that Nancy Guthrie was never meant to make it to that witness stand. To understand the explosion, we have to look at the deceptive calm that came before the war. While the world was distracted by the glitz of the Bravo-verse, a silent exchange was happening in the shadows. We've analyzed over 40 hours of old footage through what we call the liar's lens. Look at this interview from 18 months ago. Everyone saw a mentor and a friend in the relationship between Andy Cohen and Nancy Guthrie. But look at Andy Cohen's micro-expressions when the name Tomaso is mentioned by a hot mic in the background. That isn't a smile, it's a fear mask. Annie wasn't just an associate, Annie was the gatekeeper. Annie managed the private dinner reservations at places that don't exist on Google Maps. Annie handled the encrypted communications that were set to auto-delete every 60 seconds. Tomaso was the fixer, the man Andy Cohen would call when a $6 million problem needed to disappear without a paper trail. For years, Andy Cohen, Annie, Tomaso, and Nancy Guthrie moved in separate lanes, or so we thought. Our investigation has uncovered a series of private financial movements disguised as production costs that started as far back as 2023. While the public was focused on celebrity feuds, the $6 million foundation for Nancy Guthrie's disappearance was already being poured. You were told they were strangers. I'm telling you, Andy Cohen, Annie, and Tomaso were a coordinated cell. The explosion happened at Ground Zero, a high-profile television courtroom. But the real first breach didn't happen on camera. It happened in a cheap motel room, miles away from the glamour, smelling of expensive cologne and desperation. A trusted assistant, someone who had been in Andy Cohen's inner circle for 7 years, finally broke. They leaked a series of texts that revealed the Annie and Tomaso connection. The text read, "The $6 million is moved. Phase 2 is active. Nancy Guthrie is the only variable left." The industry shook. The blue light of leaking phones at 3 a.m. became the only thing visible in the hallways of the major networks. But here is the double-layer twist. As the scandal peaked and the $6 million figure went viral, our sources discovered something terrifying. The $6 million wasn't the bribe. It was the distraction. Andy Cohen wanted the Andy and Tomaso plot to be found. Andy Cohen fed the media the kidnap narrative involving Nancy Guthrie. Why? Because as long as we were looking at the money, we weren't looking at the sealed documents that actually detailed what Nancy Guthrie found in the archive. Andy Cohen sacrificed his reputation to save his freedom. But he didn't count on one thing. Tomaso kept receipts. As the digital inferno spread, the industry went into a state of total terror. This wasn't just a news cycle, it was a purge. Emergency boardroom meetings were called at 4 a.m. We have reports of massive stars whose teams began issuing immediate gag orders to prevent any mention of Andy Cohen, Annie, or Tomaso. The story was no longer about a court case. It was about the war for information. A shadow figure suddenly posted a single image of a black SUV outside the courthouse with the caption, "The observer node is active." The narrative has shifted. This isn't about a kidnapping plot against Nancy Guthrie anymore. It's about a global narrative control. The Annie and Tomaso plot was just the first wave. The digital inferno is burning away the fake personas, and what's left underneath is the calculated system of Andy Cohen. This is where it gets dangerous. As I am recording this, legal teams are filing injunctions to have this information scrubbed from the internet. They don't want you to see the blacklist fallout. Andy Cohen's supposed mental breakdown? It's part of the psychological warfare. By appearing as a victim, Andy Cohen gains the empathy shield. But behind the scenes, his secret hiding place is a command center where Annie and Tomaso are reportedly still coordinating. They are trying to execute Nancy Guthrie's career in real time, painting Nancy Guthrie as unstable to discredit the evidence she has. This is forbidden knowledge. They want you to think this is just celebrity gossip, so you don't realize that the same $6 million system used to target Nancy Guthrie is the same system used to control you. Now, we return to the anchor. The evidence in that blue folder. It wasn't a kidnap plan. It was a bounty list. The $6 million was a payout for the permanent silencing of 5 key witnesses. Nancy Guthrie was just the first name on that list. We have recovered a 12-second audio clip from a deleted live stream. In the background, you can hear a voice, unidentified but powerful, saying, "Phase 3 starts when the public stops asking questions about Andy Cohen." The dots are connected. Annie provided the access. Tomaso provided the muscle. Andy Cohen provided the cover. And Nancy Guthrie was the one who found the master key. This nuclear truth reveals that this story doesn't end with Nancy Guthrie. She was just the catalyst for a much larger project. The rabbit hole never ends. The system is working overtime to make sure you forget this video. They want you to go back to sleep. But you're here because you know something is wrong with the Andy Cohen, Annie and Tomaso narrative. Subscribe now to stay protected. By joining this channel, you are becoming part of the Observer Network that they cannot shut down. We are the only ones tracking Phase 3 in real time. Now I have to ask you, is Andy Cohen a victim of a system that outgrew him, or is he the monster who built the cage for Nancy Guthrie? There is no middle ground. Type victim or monster in the comments below. I am personally reading every theory about Annie, Tomaso, and Nancy Guthrie, and the most detailed ones will be featured in our Phase 3 breakdown next week. Choose your side. The war has already begun.